Y'all know I went to court, right? Y'all know I got sentenced. Y'all know that I did my time. According to the books, I did 1 year in jail. According to the books, I did 1 year probation after jail. According to the books, I did 100 community hours. And according to the books, I am no longer under any conditions other than to keep the peace and be of good behavior. Well, let me tell you guys. So I have my best friend. His name is George Billings. George and I, as a lot of you know, right after I got out of my house arrest,
and that the conditions were over.
And that the conditions were all over, that George and I flew to Montreal and we did a podcast together. So George and I have done a podcast. Everybody's seen it. It was one of the most viewed podcasts that I did. Then we were always talking on lives. You've seen George come in my lives every time. And then you've seen me at George's wedding. Big Swede, what's up, buddy? Then you see me at George's wedding.
Which was also public. Very public.
Very public. Well, I go to take George out on my boat.
I stayed behind. I said, you guys go have fun.
Sophie says, you guys go have a bro day. And then I'll come down the next day. You guys go have some fun. So we went and we had a great time. Everything was good. We got caught in an electrical storm on the water. It was awesome. It was the most coolest friggin' storm we ever seen. And we got back to our slip and docked, and it was about 2 a.m. And I was like, and not that we got back at 2 a.m. We were back at the slip, and at about 2 a.m, I couldn't sleep, and I was getting hungry. And I didn't want to turn the barbecue on, so I'm like, okay, George, let's jump in the truck, go for a drive. We're going to go to the McDonald's just 5 minutes away. We'll go to the McDonald's. So I go to the McDonald's. It's closed. It's like, okay, well, we'll rip to Cornwall. And we're going to go to Cornwall and go to the 24-hour McDonald's, and we're going to go get a burger. Midnight burger, right? Like, who doesn't get a midnight munchie run? Turns out that I didn't realize my taillights were out on my truck. So as I got flashed by a vehicle that passed by me, I turned off the highway onto an off-ramp. As I turned off that off-ramp, there was an OPP officer there. And I'm not going to say their name. Right as I got off the highway. Okay.
It gets better.
Fine. I'll get off the highway. OPP light me up. Oh yeah, Laura, this is good. OPP light me up. Pull me over. Telling me my taillights are out. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't know my taillights were out. Oh, but you have a front headlight out too. That was my daytime running lights. I know if I turned my lights, because when I parked, I shut my truck off. So then she goes, I think your front headlight's out. I said, that's my daytime running lights. Let me turn my light. No, that's fine. So she proceeds to give me a ticket for my taillights being out. And she proceeds to give me a ticket for my headlight being out.
No.
Okay, sure, whatever. I'll take it's just a traffic violation. No big deal. Can I see your license and registration and insurance? Sure. Here's my license. Here's my registration. But ma'am, my insurance is on my phone, on my
frozen.
On my wallet. Like, I have a wallet on my phone, and I keep all my documents on that.
You're freezing. Can you go on? Okay.
So I said, ma'am, I don't have a copy of my insurance with me, but I have insurance. She says, okay, no problem. 40 minutes, half an hour go by, and she's still not back to the truck. And I'm like, okay, she ran my name. She ran my name. All right, here we go. Then she comes over to my truck, and she goes over to the side where George was sitting. She says, are you Mr. So-and-so? And he says, no. Why are you asking me that?
No.
Well, are you his surety? And I look at her and go, surety? I ain't on no conditions, ma'am. I don't know why you're talking surety. She says, don't worry, we're going to get to the bottom of this. All right. George says, I'm Tyson Billings. She says, okay, can you prove it? Give me your ID. He gives the ID. She comes back to the truck. She says, Mr. King, can you step out? I said, what's this about? She says, well, it appears that you have violated your conditions and you are not to be in contact with George Tyson Billings. And I said, you're wrong. That's bullshit. I served my sentence over 2 years ago. Everything's done. She goes, nope. According to our system, you are under conditions and you are not allowed to be with George Billings. And I said, that's bullshit. And you know it. I said, you are making it so that I can't, you're giving me a hard time. I said, this sounds like a setup. So then she says, no, you're on conditions. I said, ma'am, that's impossible. I served my sentence. I've already served my sentence over 2 years ago. I'm done. I'm done my probation. I don't have conditions. I have one case that's waiting, but I'm on my own recognizance, and it's keep the peace and be of good behavior. So I get arrested.
Right there.
Right there. They arrested me at about 3:30 in the morning after all this fiasco goes down. I get arrested. So I go to jail. I spend the better part of the morning in jail. Then I get escorted to Cornwall. And I got to sit in the holding cells in Cornwall. Sat in the holding cells till about 2 in the afternoon. Finally, I get to go up in front of the judge. Did I eat my burger first? No, I never got my burger. When was that? That was Wednesday. That was Canada Day. Hang on, Terry. I'm not done. So, I go in front of the judge. The judge is looking at everything, and she's like going through the paperwork, and she's like, what the fuck is this? Like, she didn't say the F word. Hang on, I'll get to that.
The truck thing?
Yeah, I'll get to that. Hang on.
Another funny
Hang on, that's another funny story all in itself. Just wait. So, I get a ticket for burnt out headlight, ticket for no tail lights. Then I get a ticket for no insurance, of which I have copies of, but that'll go away. So, right away, no tail light on the trucks and no insurance. Okay. Now I'm being charged with breach of conditions, which I don't have. Okay, so I don't have conditions. I go up in front of the judge. Now I'm in front of the judge, and the judge is like looking at the paperwork, and she's asking the Crown, like, can you not show this? Like, it shows on my paperwork this man has no conditions. It shows in my paperwork that he served his sentence. It shows in my paperwork that he's a free man. He served his time. No probation, no anything. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I have restricted access to the file. She looks at him and goes, you're the Crown's office. How do you have restrictions on your own files? He says, I don't know, man. Must be a glitch with the system. So then they take me back. I got to wait because now we're getting in contact with Sophie for surety in a possible bail hearing because we don't know what's going on. So Sophie gets called. We figure it out. She's like, yeah, whatever you need to do. We're good. Then I go down back in front of the court again. And just so happens that Natasha's intern or student is working with the duty council in Cornwall that day. So Emily stands up while I'm in the back and tells the judge about everything and how my case is over. My firm that I work for, we oversaw the trial. Everything is done. And she's trying to explain it to this judge. So now it's my turn. So I explain it to the judge, and I said it to the judge exactly like this. And I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not bullshitting about anything. This is exactly how I said it. I said, Your Honor, can I just have a couple words? She says, yeah, absolutely. Can you explain some of this? I said, well, Your Honor, you got to see this is how this goes. The Crown Attorney has tried, the Crown's office in Ontario has been trying to set me up. They attempted to set me up once already. And those charges were all dropped from the initial breach that they tried to set up. Because it comes down to, in that breach, that the Crown went to the police to file charges, which is backwards. The police have to go to the Crown. Then we find out who the witnesses and everybody were, who is all involved, and we can prove 100% that it was all made up, fictitious. And even in that bail hearing, the judge said this is no grounds for incarceration. Mr. King, he will be released immediately. I'm going to take a 20-minute break, and you guys figure this shit out. So I'm in front of the judge now, trying to explain the situation. And I said, Your Honor, this is another instance where the Crown is trying to set me up again. And she's like, well, I don't see it. And I look over at the little snooty, little smart aleck, little Crown, little bastard on the other side. And he's laughing at me. He's over at his desk laughing at me. And I said, see, Your Honor, he's laughing about it. So this will show you. And Emily stands up and she's like, Your Honor, this did occur. There was a fictitious breach attempt on Mr. King, of which the charges were stayed. In fact, I wanted to go to court so I could prove that the Crown maliciously tried to prosecute me. But they used their tactics and they decided that they were going to stay in the charges instead. So I tell the Crown this. All the while, I have no idea what happened after I got taken back to the jail. So I end up the judge looks at all the paperwork. She goes, I'm not having any of this. She's like, Mr. King, you're being released. Don't worry. I said, okay, well, that's a step in the right direction. So she says, but you're going to have to appear to show all of this and validate all these findings. I said, absolutely. And I said, okay, no problem. And she releases me. I don't know where my truck is. I don't know any of this. Then we find out that my truck was impounded. Okay, Terry? So there's where you're like, well, the truck was impounded.
This is the funny part.
So I go, oh, fuck, my truck got impounded. Sophie picks me up from the courthouse. And I said, I guess my truck's gone. She's like, your truck? I said, yeah, is it not impounded? She goes, no. And I'm like, what?
I said, I have the truck.
She says, I have the truck. I said, you have my truck? She's like, yeah. I said, how the fuck does that happen? Well, turns out the police officers, no headlight, no taillights, and no insurance. They decided to let George drive back to the marina with my truck. So George goes back to the marina with my truck.
That was supposedly the reason why he got stopped in the first place.
Which was the whole reason I got stopped in the first place, because no insurance, no lights, no taillights. How do you allow him to take the truck back? Not only how do you let him take the truck back, you gave him a fucking police escort.
What a joke.
They gave him a police escort back.
Only because George asked. They were gonna let him
George
go.
is like, I don't know where to go. Like, I have no phone right now. We just left the boat to go get a burger, and like I don't know where I'm at. So they go and take him back. They followed him. They give him an escort back. Laura, Doug would be losing his mind at this right now. You can't make this shit up. Yeah, because we've been seeing that for how long? Yeah. So Doug's been a witness to all of this. So we get back and we end up having to call the trip short just on the behalf, because here's how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want to hear this? You got to hear this. When I got sentenced, George and I's conditions were dropped. They were all dropped, and the judge even put in them, Pat can't speak to George until he's off of his house arrest. So we didn't talk until I was off my house arrest. So we got text messages from Natasha. We've got everything where, oh, it's so nice to see you guys back again. You guys are doing great. And
That's another good point, Deb.
And then we find out the conditions were taken off of my sentencing, but little Mr. Karimji, when he did the other conditions, forgot to take off part 5 of the conditions on my other ones. So it still says that I can't be with George Billings on my conditions.
Which is such a typo.
Which is a typo. And it's not supposed to be there. And they know that. And the judge knows that. That is the extent of my Canada Day. And that is what I just fucking experienced this week upon losing my leg down the river. Did they fix it? No, I have an appearance on August 13th. At that point, that is where I will bring in all the paperwork and everything, and I will prove it to him. But I just got out of there for now. And I'm like, we'll deal with this later. And the judge says, yeah. And Mr. King, don't worry about driving to Cornwall. You can appear by Zoom. I know you live in Montreal. And that's what I said, Jesse Ray, sue them. So I said, in the officers got their body cam, I said, you guys are in so much trouble. You are in so much trouble. And if you're not in trouble, somebody is in a lot of trouble for what they just did to me. And I'm like, and I kept saying it on the camera. I said, someone's in a lot of trouble. I said, this is bullshit. This is a setup. This is an absolute nightmare. I said, this should not be happening. I've served my time. I've done my penance. I've paid, okay? I've paid my pound of flesh already. And even the judge looks at like, you're co-accused, sentenced, your sentence is done, probation's done, community service done, everything's done. You no longer have conditions with your co-accused. I don't understand why this is on here. This whole, and she's got a mountain of paperwork on her fucking desk. And she says, I have no idea what is going on here, but there is something fishy happening right now. And that's the judge's exact words. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're going to, and we've got all the documentation, we've got all the paperwork, we've got everything. It is a error that was done by the Crown, Moise Karimji, in Ottawa, intentionally to fuck me over. And I feel 100% that was his little way of fucking sticking it to me again. Because he took the conditions off, but on the other one, you put the conditions, you forgot to omit that one. That was a setup. And I can fucking prove it 100% now.
Be careful.
I can though, because
no,
it was taken off.
Of saying that, because if he really wanted to, then he would have got you when he flew in the first time.
So there's my point. Here's my point, and that's exactly what Sophie just said. I should have been breached when George and I did our interview. I should have been breached when I went to George's wedding. I should have been breached when I had George on my lives several times. I should have been breached when I went to Chris and Tamara's court cases. Because I had no conditions to be able to talk to Chris and Tamara and all of this too. Those conditions are still on. But nobody did anything. And
that's what proves it's a typo.
That's exactly what proves it's a typo. So whoever did that, and they can go, and this is how I see it. I see it going like this. Oh, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. We'll just correct that. What doesn't fucking run with me right is the fact that I had to go back to jail and go through that whole process again. And the fact that they put me through that whole scenario again, which obviously fucking shook up some cobwebs. And for me, it was pretty intense. And it was like, I was within 20 minutes of going back to OCDC. I was 20 minutes. At 4:30 in the afternoon, the bus was leaving for Ottawa Detention Center. I was about to go back. I was about to head back. And they said, you're going back to Innis. And I said, like fuck I am. I am not going back to Innis. I am not going back to that fucking jail. And then when I went back in, The judge was like, Mr. King, we're releasing you. We're releasing you right now. And the Crown had the audacity to say, but Your Honor, he's a danger to the public. How in the fuck am I a danger to the public? I'm a danger to the public. And the Crown was like, no, Your Honor, we can't release him. No, we can't release him, after he snickered and laughed at me for all of this bullshit. So that was our week. George ended up having to leave, and we're gonna reschedule for another day. You would think that this fucking officer that arrested me had fucking won the lottery. She was so giddy. She was so giddy about fucking getting me. She was just like, and I was like, sweetheart, you gotta look at this. Look at the dates on the paperwork. Here's the other thing. But wait, I said, sweetheart, you gotta look at those dates and look at what date it is now from there. She's like, yeah, 2024. I said, where's all the paperwork in between? Where's the probation officer who signed me off on my probation, who signed off on my sentencing, who says I'm a free man? Where is that? She's like, oh, I don't see that. I'm like, oh, interesting. So I got 1 year in jail, and here we are 2.5 years later. You think I'm still in jail right now? And she's like, well, it's the system, and I have to do my job, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, holy flying fuck, lady. Like, you can't do the math here? Something is afoot. Something is afoot at the Circle K. So here's how I know that something's afoot. One of the officers comes back, and he says, hey, Mr. King, how are you? I said, I'm good. I said, I've had better days. He was like, yeah, we're all seeing this. And I'm talking 3 officers are looking over everything going, whoa. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, do you smoke? I said, yep. He goes, come with me. Pulls me out of my cell. No handcuffs. No nothing. Takes me outside and lets me crush 2 darts while talking and shooting the shit about everything. And he's like, yeah, something doesn't seem right, Mr. King, and we see this. And, you know, I can't say here or there, but, and another officer was walking in and he's standing there. Guys, I had no shoes on. I had a fucking shower cap on my fucking, my good foot. I had a shower cap because it was like 37 degrees that day. And I had to walk on the asphalt in barefoot, in a barefoot. So now, imagine, I knew shit was afoot, but I kept my cool the whole fucking time. I kept my cool. I didn't freak out. I didn't get belligerent. I didn't get ignorant. I didn't get anything bad. I didn't say anything wrong, and I held my cool. One of the old timers in the detachment, his name is Dave. Really nice guy. Comes up and he says, oh man, he says, Mr. King, he says, I followed your case the whole way. He says, I know. And I know what's going on. He says, this is wrong. He says, are you hungry? I said, well, yeah, I'm definitely hungry. I said, we were on our way to get a burger and I wasn't able to get my burger. And he says, you hungry? I said, yeah, I'm a little hungry. He proceeds to go to his lunch and pull out his only 2 pizza pops. And he cooked his pizza pops and he brought them to me and he gave them to me in the cell. And he's like, here, man, get something to eat. Get some food in you. I said, okay, thank you. And he's like, I'm sorry this is happening to you. He says, but you're handling it very well. And I said, not on the inside. I said, but I know better. You don't attract flies with honey or with shit. You attract them with honey. So then we proceed to be like, okay, we're out. We're on our way home. Sophie obviously is, you know, like, you fucking bumbling idiot. Like, she's like, what the fuck? We will to proceed to explain it to her. And she's like, what? So now she's kind of got everything kind of squared away now and understanding everything. So then we go, and I'll do the Coles Notes version quick. So then we go up to Old Cascade by Rawdon. I go for a swim to cool off. It was a hot day. And I tried to save a guy from drowning, and my leg got swept off and went down the river.
The next day. So now I'm out without a leg for a day, and then they just found it today. Somebody who was swimming there found my leg. So the constant harassment continues 4 years later. But at least this time, at least this time, somebody's going to pay for what they did. Somebody is going to. Now I file another, what? Do I file another Ontario Law Society fucking case and have it thrown out again? I don't know anybody out there who's had a successful case where your lawyers have fucked you right over and won with the Ontario Law Society. Because I've filed malicious prosecution complaints against this Crown continuously throughout my whole trial, and they got thrown out except for one. And then a year and a half later, they said, "Oh, we'll accept it." And then a year and a half later, they threw it out again. Once again, I am dealing with some fucking stupid bullshit. Thanks to one malicious Crown who says he's all for Canada, but has nothing better to do than harass Canadians. I am going to start representing myself from now on. I am not using lawyers. And everybody has that ability. Anyways, so that's my story.
We're just waiting for Jonathan Blanchette. So he'll be here any minute, so